Okay, we'll start with this. Mikaela Mayer, responding to Alicia Baumgartner's recent appearance on the Ariel Helwani show, how their fight was the real main event, not Shields versus Marshall, Mikaela stated there's another super fight for you that's been left on the table. Mayer versus Baumgartner 2. You're not wrong, Alicia. We most definitely sold the hell out of our fight at the O2. Let's do it again. For the fans and for women's boxing, good luck this weekend. I'll meet you at 140 when you're ready. Currently, neither fighter holds a title in the 140-pound division, and it is hard to imagine that both Mikaela and Alicia would meet each other in the middle to fight for no belt at all. I suppose that the fight between them really isn't about belts. It's a grudge match, like Joshua versus Fury. But Mikaela didn't stop there. She said, shoot, I'm here for this too. Baumgartner rematch at 140, Price at 147, Cameron or Chris Cyborg at 154, Shields at 160. I'll even see Dubois once she makes her way up to 147. I don't care about the fame or the O. I've only ever cared about challenging myself against the best opposition. That is the only thing that will bring me peace once I hang it up. Give me every challenge back to back. Now, how many of these fights can you actually expect Mikaela to have, and of the fights that she has, how many of them can she win? So let's rule out the Shields fight right away. I don't see that happening in the near future or the distant future. It's going to come down to money, and I don't think that Mikaela is going to concede that much weight to Clarissa Shields for what Clarissa pays her opponents. I just don't see it. Baumgartner rematch at 140 pounds, tenuous as to whether or not that rematch will ever happen, since Alicia means to stay put at 130. 140 is 2 divisions north of where she campaigns. Based on their current form, if there were a second fight between them at 140 pounds and it were next, I might have to tip my hat off to Mikaela Mayer, who has more experience fighting at the higher weights and has become more aggressive, more strong, more come forward, whereas Alicia hasn't wowed me in a long time. Alicia won the first fight. If Mikaela won the rematch, that would set a precedent for a rubber match, a trilogy. Lauren Price fight is still on the table. That's still possible. I know that Lauren's name has recently become attached to Clarissa Shields' fight, but I don't see that happening either. For the same reason I don't see the Mayer fight happening. It's going to come down to money. More than Clarissa's got. So maybe a Mayer fight can still happen, and if it does, based on their current run of form and how Lauren just looked with Stephanie Pinedo, I might have to give Mikaela the edge in that fight also. I've long maintained you can't win a boxing match with Lauren. You have to press her and pressure her, mow her down, force her to work when she doesn't want to, and I think Mikaela Mayer can do that. If Stephanie Pinedo, who's a lot less experienced than Mikaela, if she can touch you up and bloody you, Mikaela might be able to do one better. And what about Chantel Cameron? You know, I think she can beat Chantel too. Chantel Cameron recently rejoined her old training team, Nigel Travis and Jamie Moore, likely because she's another fighter that hasn't wowed anybody in a long time. I think Mikaela beats her. In a firefight, both fighters have a penchant for coming forward and being aggressive, crashing the pocket. I think Mikaela beats her. Potentially in the junior middleweight division where they both hold titles, or Mikaela could branch out and do a little crossover fight with Chris Cyborg, who's been boxing for 1 or 2 years now, building up her record. Cyborg's been gunning for a Shields fight, but to no avail. Clarissa doesn't want to give her the time of day, and she doesn't seem to want to come down to junior middleweight. She hasn't been able to get that fight, but maybe she can get this one. Remember, MVP now promotes Mikaela Mayer, and MVP is also promoting the upcoming Gina Carano versus Ronda Rousey MMA fight. So maybe they can sell this crossover fight between Mikaela and Chris to Netflix. Maybe they can pick it up. It's another fight where you have to give Mikaela Mayer the edge. Being honest, I would give Mikaela the edge in most of these fights if they do happen. The one that I wouldn't is the Shields fight, but that's the fight I don't expect to happen. And what about a Dubois fight? What you're talking about is a Mayer versus Dubois fight at 147 pounds. The question then becomes, how long is it going to take Carolyn to get there? And by the time she does, how's she going to be looking? How is Mikaela going to be looking? What run of form are they going to be on? That's another fight. I'm not even sure if it happens, but if it does, by that time, you might actually have to give Carolyn the edge because she's a lot younger than Mikaela. You might, but we'll see. The answer's not quite clear. That's how I think a lot of those fights would play out. Now, how many of those fights are actually possible? Not just possible, but probable, plausible. likely to happen. Ruling out Shields, which I don't expect to happen, and Dubois, which is so far down the line, it's not even worth talking about. From most likely to least likely, the Chantel Cameron fight seems very likely to happen. That one might happen next, might happen this year. After that, I'd say the Lauren Price fight and the Cyborg fight are neck to neck. Those fights are just about as likely to happen as each other. Those two. The Baumgartner fight is the least likely fight to happen, even though it's possible. Alicia has never been too keen on giving Mikaela a chance to avenge that loss, and she's still at 130, where Mikaela's toggling between 147 and 154. It could happen, theoretically, but it's not that likely to happen. Some of these fights will, though, and that's the good news for Mikaela. Now that she's got MVP behind her, she is going to be able to get some of these girls in the ring, and if she does, I think she can beat them.
Like, it wasn't the class that I should have been in anymore, any longer. I think that it was the timing couldn't have been any better, just because of the fact that we need to get the startup of the best fighting the best. I think you are one of those that want to see that, right? I think those that are watching, you guys could disagree with me on everything else that I say, but how many of you want to just see us fight? Whether we win, lose, just have everybody fight. That was the reason of the Four Kings in the 80s. That was the reason why we seen so many of them fighting. That how many we seen in Jack Johnson and all these other great champions fighting and having 100, like nearly almost 100 professional fights. I mean, now you're barely lucky if you're even going to pass 30 fights fighting these top guys. So it's a shame in certain areas, but Make Boxing Great Again was that avenue. I was like, well, okay, forget. You know, undefeated guy. Just he had Andre Ward behind him. He had Terrence Bud Crawford behind him. He had Floyd Money Mayweather behind him. Timothy Desert Storm Bradley behind him. You know, Jay Prince behind him.
All good friends of yours.
Shoot, you know, there was others that were all behind him. Roy Jones was behind him. So, just let you know, and I don't have nobody behind me. I mean, God himself, yeah. But when it came to it, even the night of, I didn't have nobody behind me. But it let me know something that I needed to know all along, was that I got to start moving in a way of progressing my career the way I should dictate it. But I should now. You know, I'm 28. I love my father. I respect my father. But there's going to be changes, not necessarily changes in training, in trainers, but changes in the way I want to, like, have my camps and where they should be at. Because for someone that young, that has achieved so much, and for someone that's never quit despite the amount of adversities and obstacles, I've done so well. And if I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking weed, and I'm getting tested randomly, and I'm doing all these things, and I'm staying on my point, and you know, watching my P's and Q's, then I'm gonna get there.
So now the excuse is that when he fights Shakur Stevenson, he wasn't in the right division. When he fights Josh Taylor, wins a WBO title. When he successfully defends it against Arnold Barboza. Those fights weren't even far apart, by the way. The Barboza fight and the Stevenson fight. One followed the other. I hate a sore fucking loser. I hate a guy, you can't take him at his word. And oftentimes that's the case with boxers and their boxing careers, particularly the losses, as so much of their ego is tied into their profession. They can't be objective. Thus is often the case with boxing fans, because their egos get tied into the fights, and the same is true of the boxers. More so with the boxers. It's always something. Oh, now he wasn't in the right division. What, because you were weight drained? Let me tell you something about Teofimo Lopez. On average, between fights, he's not a big guy. He's not a big guy in fights, and he's not a big guy in between them, to where if you feel tight at the weight at 140, that has more to do with your diet. Your diet more than anything else, because Teo doesn't have the physical dimensions of a welterweight. He should feel right at home at 140. Oddly enough, and I said this years ago, I didn't think that Teofimo Lopez would be able to stay in character north of 135. At 135, he was fast, he was strong, he was big for the weight, and he was youthful at 135. At 140, you could argue that most of that campaign, he didn't face the best that division had to offer. He fought Josh Taylor. But we all know Josh was shot to shit. Nagging injuries and an arguable loss to Jack Catterall before he fights Teofimo. We know that Josh wasn't the same at the time that he fought Teofimo. Better still, that's the only elite 140-pounder that he fought. All those other guys that he fought, like Gampas and Sandor Martin, Arnold Barboza, those other guys, Steve Claggett. You can't even really count Shakur Stevenson because before he fights Teofimo, he had no fights at 140. He was new to the weight. So you could argue that Teofimo Lopez's campaign at 140 for as long as it lasted did not consist of the best and brightest fighters at 140, not consistently. He didn't bump into Subriel, Gary Antoine Russell, Alberto Puello. There's guys in that division, there was guys there, they could have gave him a lot of problems. The guys he ended up fighting, some of them gave him problems. He seems to be moving up to the welterweight division now, not having the physical dimensions of a welterweight. Today's welterweight division primarily consists of fighters who moved up, like Rolly and Ryan and Devin. They moved up like Teofimo is about to, but they are bigger guys than Teofimo. You can see that. They have more room to fill out at 147. He doesn't plan on making any subtractions to his corner. He's going to keep his father on board in spite of his limitations. Okay, if you don't want to make any subtractions, at least make some additions. Somebody else to bring a new set of eyes and something new to your regimen, because the way things are going, you got the same deficiency, the same weaknesses. And who's supposed to be promoting him moving forward? Because he doesn't look to be with Top Rank anymore. I'd call that Top Rank dodging a bullet. This kid's expensive, and he always has a problem. He's never happy, so who's gonna promote him now? Rumor has it that he may be the latest Keith Connolly fighter that migrates over to Zmufa. Edgar Berlanga did, Richardson Hitchens did, Conor Benn, albeit very briefly. Teofimo might be next. If he is, that could be a good move for him. It won't get him the big fights, the high-profile ones with Ryan and Rolly and Devin. Perhaps not, but it will give him a chance to rebuild in a more tepid and shallow talent pool. Zmufa's welterweight division. They can help each other, Zuffa and Teofimo. Teofimo going about his career the conventional way would not make any headlines, not him coming off a loss, the second of his career. But if he goes over to Zmufa, that's news. That beefs up their stable, and simultaneously that gives people a reason to talk about Teofimo, to bring him up, because right now, there ain't one. Outside of him being a sore loser and making excuses for losing to Shakur, going to Zuffa could be beneficial, though wouldn't that put distance between him and the fights that he wants to have, the high-profile ones with the boys at 147? Perhaps. But perhaps that's what he needs. He was just in a really big fight and he lost. He doesn't actually need to rush into another one. He's only 28 years old, still relatively young and accomplished. A two-weight world champion, two-time lineal, two-time Ring Magazine. Go to Zuffa, knock over what stiffs they put in front of you. Make money, make a living, and work on things while you do. Give yourself the time to do that, because you got time. Not everybody can say that.
No, I don't know. It can't be, he's popular, he's this, he's that, but you can't really look at yourself. Like, I was my own worst critic myself when I would watch myself fight. Damn, and there was some wins, I'm like, damn, I gotta look better than that. There's no way he's looking at himself on these fights and be like, yeah, I can get in there with Shakur. Maybe you can say I can steal the bag and you'll get paid for these fights. Wow. But there's no way you can look at yourself fighting last week, or any fight for that matter, recently, and say to yourself, man, I can get in there with these guys and beat them. You got to be in another planet to think that.
That or a brilliant marketer. We've talked about guys who have to
okay,
market
but that's
themselves.
what I'm saying. But then inside of himself, he knows he's selling it. What I'm saying, there's no way he can seriously believe it himself. That's what I'm saying. There's no way you can see. You can publicly, yes, you can sell it. It's the way. It's kind of what you're supposed to do, right? But there's no way he can look at himself and be like, yeah, I can be Ryan Garcia. There's no way. I don't know. I don't get it. He's a tough guy. If he goes to distance with Ryan, he's going to take a beating.
Yeah.
If he goes distance with Ryan.
Otherwise,
because to go to Ryan is levels better than him.
And the weight. The weight's a real issue. But
and the issue with the weight too.
Weight's a real issue because he, at 49 and a half.
I want to ask you guys. Let me ask you.
Paulie doesn't believe that Benn believes he could beat Ryan Garcia, but then why do it? Why move down? If certain defeat awaits you... Well, it's because of what I said in my previous video. He could lose at 160 to a guy just as easily as he could lose at 154, just as easily as he could lose to Ryan at 147. So in a situation like that, what a limited fighter has to do is mitigate when and where he loses, and for how much. Losing to Ryan at 147 may pay better than losing to somebody at 154, at 160, and it may not be as bad. Because the opponent may not be as big. I don't think that Conor Benn, having made all the money that he made from the 2 Chris Eubank Jr. fights and the 15 mil for Pro Gray, what he's about to make for Ryan in a fight they say is far along.
Talks are progressing.
Those things in mind, and whatever that pays, I do not think that Conor Benn is along for the sport of boxing. I do not think he's going to be in it as long as, say, Chris Eubank Jr. has been, at the age that Chris Eubank Jr. is. Conor's making more money at a faster rate than Chris did doing the same thing. It's the same shtick. The Nepo baby thing.
Living off of your dad's surname.
Consider how long it took Chris Eubank Jr. to really start making money. Good money.
It didn't take Conor Benn as long, comparatively. He's making enough that he could retire in the not-so-distant future. He doesn't beat Ryan. I think Ryan Garcia might knock him out, not simply because Ryan hits so hard, but because at 147, Conor might be so drained. And afterwards, if he loses, and he loses bad, what, you think he's gonna stick around for a few more years to be everybody's punching bag? Sitting on millions.
Provided that he doesn't blow through them with frivolous purchases.
Yeah, because boxers got a penchant for that, too.
I don't think Conor Benn is long for the sport of boxing, so when Paulie Malignaggi says that Conor can't seriously believe that he beats Ryan Garcia, maybe he doesn't, maybe he loses, and maybe he knows that.
That's still the best move. Losing to Ryan is still better, pays better, than losing to somebody else. So he's gonna do it anyway, and who knows?
The old saying goes, aim for the moon and you might hit a star. Goes in there, gives a halfway decent account of himself that allows him to extend his boxing career a little further and maybe make a little bit more money. But like I said, I don't think Conor Benn, having made the money that he's made at the rate that he's made it, I don't think he's long for the sport of boxing.
He's not gonna stick around long enough to see himself become a journeyman, a gatekeeper with losses in the double digits. No, not sitting on millions.
Fighter of limited ability with some marquee value has to be very careful how they navigate their career. It's not a question of losing or when you're gonna lose. You know that you're going to.
So you mitigate. When, where, and for how much.
Can't even fault him for it, because going through the sport through conventional means, Conor would have lost long before he started making these kinds of prices. The decisions that he's made, dubious or otherwise, are getting him more money than your average boxer, many of which are better than him.
So it's strange, but he's just doing what he's gotta do.